It's your girl TT from the D. Welcome to the top of the morning show. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope that you had a wonderful weekend. If you are from the D and you are up on the More Than the Eyes Can See event that just took place on Saturday, you know that it was a phenomenal show. Shout out to Crystal P. Shout out to the amazing Diamonds, the Diamond Mine Band, Onyx, which we would say that these amazing people have individual names, but if you were there, then you recognize and you understand. It was an amazing evening, and you definitely had more than the eyes can see. This week, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to focus on the 5 love languages, okay? We're going to talk about words of affirmation today. We'll talk about acts of service tomorrow. Wednesday, we'll talk about gifts. Thursday, quality time. And Friday, physical touch. Now, some of you might be saying, what? Let me just kind of tap in a little bit. So, to give you an overview so you can know what you can look forward to this coming week. So, words of affirmation pretty much are expressions, affection through, or I should say words of expressing ourselves through the words of encouragement. Whether it's you saying this with your spouse, your significant other, whenever someone is playing a sport or gives word of encouragement. Like for my husband, he's overseas, been touring for a little over a month right now. So I'm always giving him words of affirmation, right? Encouragement, motivation, with all the jet setting and flying and just all that crazy schedule changes. Encouragement is what I could provide for him because I'm not in his physical presence, but I'm in his spiritual presence, right? So I would share words of encouragement, whether it was by text or speaking it into his existence by ear-to-ear phone conversations, whatever that looks right. Whatever that looks like to him, you know, and that could really boost the person's confidence. It really can get them on when you're cheering them on, especially when they might tend to not, I ain't gonna really say doubt themselves, but just question like, oh my God, can I do this? You know, you've been in that situation where you kind of feel like, oh my God, it's a lot. It's a bit much. Oh yeah, it's a bit much, right? Because we really just be going through life and in our relationships, for those of us that are married, like I'm married, going on 11 years this year. To some, that might seem very long. To others, that might mean, oh, that looks like that was a walk in the park, right? So one of the things for my husband and I, what we had to do, shout out to our pastor, Harvey Carey, senior pastor at Citadel of Faith Covenant Church. We had to do some homework, as he said, when we were going to premarital counseling, right? Now, some folks, let me say it again. Some folks go around the corner because they don't want to do that part. And I wonder if it's because you know that you'll get outed, because that pastor is going to see some things, especially if he's an ordained pastor. Now, some people just marry you. They don't care. They like, listen, that's on y'all. They look at it, they say that you got to have accountability. You know if she's the one, you know if he the one. Okay, but isn't it your job as a pastor who is leading the people to look at a person when you bring them together in holy matrimony under a covenant, that you are making sure that they're on one accord, that they are equally yoked to the best of your ability? That's my thought. That's a rhetorical question. Yet it's not. You can't answer it back to me, so it's kind of rhetorical. But if you want to drop me a line or drop a message under the link after I post it, you definitely please do that. We love to hear from our people, the listeners, because a lot of the information we talk about, we actually got it from you. I did something clever. I think it's clever anyway. Last year, before we shut down for season 2, I wanted season 3 to be different. I didn't know exactly how it was going to be different. I didn't know that TT from the D podcast show was going to kick off a morning show, which is a spinoff from TT from the D podcast show, right? And so my morning show is on Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. faithfully, right? And we'll talk about all kind of things. We'll have different type of guests. If you've been following since we started, last week was the Crystal P takeover. Amazing. Simply amazing. The week prior to that, I did the Christina Benjamin takeover. And one thing I love about doing those takeovers when we have that opportunity with someone who's very intriguing is giving them the opportunity to allow you to get to know them 5 days, right? You ever known you go away for a weekend getaway and you just kind of feel like, oh my God, I really don't feel like I really got away, because think about it. Let's just say we say, oh, we're going to go to Florida, because one of my favorite places to go. Okay, so let's just say we're going to Florida for the weekend. So we're going to fly out on an early flight, and I take the earliest flight out, right? I get on that red eye if I can. If not, I get on that 9 o'clock, right? Get there about noon. I already have planned things out, right? Of course, I got my agenda. My husband know how I do. Because normally when we take a quick trip like that, it's just him and I. When we do like a little getaway and we're like a couple of days, like if it's not our anniversary, we tend to take the boys and we'll go to Orlando or Myrtle Beach or something like that. And we stay 3 days, if not more. Because what we've learned is when you go through, let's just say for us, let's go back to the weekend getaway. And I know you're like, TT, you're digressing. No, not really. So we leave out on Friday. You get there, you check in, you do all you could do on Friday, right? Saturday, you like, woo, but you want to not miss nothing, so you got to pack everything into Saturday. So you might be lazy, but you want to get up, you want to at least have brunch, right? Start your day, have dinner, you might hit the club or an event or something, or you might be lazy. Excuse me, still tired. So you might be lazy, right? Sunday, shoot, you getting ready to go to the airport, because what we don't want to do is stay at a hotel that doesn't have late checkout. If we do request late checkout, if they could do that, and a lot of times if you ask in advance, they'll work with you. You can stay till like 12:30, sometimes 1:30. It depends on the property. Now you got to get to the airport, right? And so you just kind of like, dang, we really didn't get to really get it in. But what I've learned when we go out and we do that, we're gone 3 days. So we'll go 4 days, 3 nights. That's a vacation, right? And I say that to say because there's different love languages. Like, for instance, like we're typing into this morning, words of affirmation, but there's also, as I said, acts of service. That's an act of service. My husband knows I love to go places and try new things. And, I'm a foodie in my spirit. Gifts. It could be that trip could have been a gift. You understand? And then it also gives us quality time. So you take these 5 love languages and you look at what I just gave you as a scenario, an example of getting away for the weekend with your spouse, but I used myself and Swifty. We could have covered a multitude of the languages because there's 5 according to studies and, Gary Chapman, right? So we have words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Every good marriage, I would say, is going to tackle the 5 love languages when they get away. Now, I'm dropping that for somebody. I feel it in my spirit. Somebody needs to be reminded that, yes, your wife still likes to get away. Yes, your husband still likes to get away. Yes, your girlfriend still likes to get away. Yes, your boyfriend still likes to get away. Yeah, we do. Because when we talk about marriage and relationships on a serious note, we are so busy that we have to make time. And for me, I'm using myself and Swifty as an example this morning because my husband's been on tour for a little over a month now, and it's kind of like, dang. So I do this little thing. I've been doing it, almost 20 years. Yeah, almost 20 years I've been doing it. But acts of service. So I always when he's gone on the road for 3 or more days, I'll slide notes into his luggage, backpack, whatever, right? And so what I did this time, I wrote a card for every day he was away. I had his tour schedule. I Googled the venues, and I got to see a little bit of what's going on, promo, all that kind of stuff. I then put myself in a mindset of saying, what could I say to him? What words of affirmation, right? What could I say to him that would allow him to say, wow, she's not here physically, but it's like she's here. And so I would write it out. So I wrote out cards for every single day, including his travel day to come back home, right? And so I look at that and I say, yeah, that's words of affirmation, right? Because it was always motivating, encouraging words and what I thought was going on. And it really bothered me to have to sit there because I'm thinking like, oh, I'm going to miss him. And I realize how many days. And I'm like, oh, absence does make the heart grow fonder. And so sliding those cards in was an act of service, right? And also words of affirmation also passed up in there, right? You know what I'm saying? And then it was just like, you spray a little perfume or, put on different colors of lipstick and leave kiss marks. And yeah, those things were very instrumental in me providing an act of service followed up with words of affirmation. Because it's the little things, ladies and gentlemen. It's the little things that make a big difference. Now, we do love those big things. Don't get me wrong. Who doesn't like the big things? We all do. If somebody says, oh, yeah, I really ain't into the big things. I prefer the little things. I don't know. It depends on that person, I guess, I would assume. But I would look at it and say, yeah, I love the big things like I love the little things. They're all important. All those little things can ante up and make a big thing. But, and everything don't have to be a big deal, right? I tell people, you might can't afford something. You might say, well, dang, okay, an anniversary or a birthday is coming. And let's just say you're not in a position where you can do what you always normally would do or what you would want to do. Get creative with it. You know what I'm saying? Whether you made a dinner and bought you some candles from the dollar store and strategically placed them throughout the house and spread you a nice blanket in your living room in the center of the floor. If you have a fireplace, turn that boy on. If you don't have a fireplace, that's okay. If you have a patio, whether, depending where you live in the world, if you have a patio or in-screen porch, you might want to take your time and set that up outside and just enjoy. Create that dinner, that anniversary dinner, or that birthday dinner, a bottle of champagne if you can, or wine. I mean, depending if, what your taste is, you can get a very inexpensive bottle of wine. We all know people who got a fully stocked bar. I don't care if you have to go to their house and say, hey, or make a phone call. Listen, hey, I'm trying to put together this nice little romantic dinner. I'm low on budget, but I'm trying to create an ambiance. I know you like a mini bar over there. Like it's like going to a bar at your house. What bottles do you have open? Or not open, not open, but you have available that I could actually get it from you, and I'll give it back to you as soon as I get paid. I don't get paid till next week or the week after or whatever that looks like. Most people be like, shit, I got you. You ain't even got to get his back. Happy birthday to this person, or your wife or your husband, or happy anniversary to you guys from us. It's on us. Or they might say, well, no, I don't got that. What was you trying to get? They may gift you. And I ain't saying say that and do that because, when we do things for people, we want to do it out the kindness of our heart. But yeah, create it, write a handwritten letter telling your wife or your husband how you feel about them in that season for that occasion. Just give you an example, okay? But so back to the words of affirmation. It really, like I said, it can really boost a person's confidence. And a lot of times, if a person's going through some things, you could just go, you can go to the dollar store, y'all. Get you a card for different situations and circumstances just to have on standby. You can go to, Dollar Tree? Most cards are $2 for $1. So if you take you $10 in there, you can get you 10 cards. Well, you know what I'm saying. You're going to need $10.60, but you know what I'm saying, right? So get you a birthday card, sympathy, celebration, congratulations, thinking of you, get well, just because, whatever, a plethora, a group of different ones. And just depending on how your significant other is going and feeling, they may be going through something, or something great could have happened and you ain't got time to get to the store. But when they wake up the next morning, if you make them breakfast or a cup of coffee, you slide that card into their briefcase or into their backpack, or, run out, put it in their car on their driver's seat, on their dashboard. You get what I'm saying? And it's kind of like they might think like, dang, how did they have time? When did they have time to go to Walmart or Walgreens or CVS or Rite Aid or whatever your local pharmacy type of store is and grab a card? My husband make jokes and says, it's like you got a Hallmark stash somewhere, and if you open it, cards just gonna fall out the closet or out this box, because you always have cards. And what I've done, like when I knew my husband was getting ready to go on tour, this is embarrassing, but whatever. I'm transparent, so I don't care. I bought cards. I counted the days initially. I'm like, okay, I need these cards. I've been bought them. Then I hid them, right? When it got closer to the time for him to leave, I didn't know what I did with those cards. I'm like, I hid them so good, I hid them for myself. So I had to go to the store again and buy those cards again. So it was like, oh my God, right? There was a card for every day in March. The last couple days in February for my husband, right? Just the little things. And I tell you, those words of affirmation, they go a long way. And it was so amazing. And it did something for me in return to hear him say, babe, I read my card today and I was like, how did you know this was going to be how I felt? And I was like, I don't know. I really sat back, looked at where you were going, imagine, because I know my husband, imagine what could be happening, what he might be feeling. And I wrote from my heart. And that sealed it up with a kiss and put it in there, because I spoke life, right? There's power in words. So when we speak it, it's powerful. When we write it, when we text it, we got to be mindful. We could be going through some things or have a little attitude. Y'all know how we do. And you might be looking and saying, well, dang, I didn't mean to say that. I shouldn't have did that, or blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's why we have to be careful when we're upset, how we say things, what we say, and who we say them to. We have to be very, very mindful. Those affirmation, words of affirmation, those words could also be used in a negative way if you're a negative person and you're speaking negativity. So you have to be very, very cautious about how you speak to people, because as well as we want to always encourage and boost people's confidence, you could also make them feel less than when they're disencouraged. And it's kind of like, and it's like you took a pin, you popped the air balloon, and their confidence is just going out. Some faster than others. Some people will see a person and say some things that they know that will upset that person because they're upset or they're not happy. So in return, they want to make sure this person's not happy. And I think that's so unfair. That's totally unfair. But some people don't care. Some people literally do not care. And I really, really feel like that's terrible, right? I really do. I think that that old saying back in the day, I used to hear as a child, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. I used to be looking like, you just don't want nobody to say nothing. But then I thought about it like, you know what? Yeah, like I might say some nasty stuff because I'm not appreciating how you're treating me or someone I care for, or just behaving overall. I might say something. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to be quiet. Well, what you got to say about that, TT? Nothing. Oh, you're misopinionated, overopinionated, blah, blah, blah. You ain't got nothing to say. And you're sitting there looking like, I'm trying to be nice now. I'm trying to be nice, right? So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be real quiet, right? Because sometimes it's hard to tell whether people love you or they don't. And some people aren't used to words of affirmation. Some people grew up in households or in families where they don't say things to encourage one another. You know how some people will say, dang, I love when I see in social media families that travel together. I was just talking with my cousins yesterday. We celebrated my cousin Vanessa's 25th birthday. Shout out to Vanessa. So we celebrated her 25th birthday. And I was like, hey, we haven't done it in a long time, but what about a family vacation? Like, let's get family members and let's agree to go somewhere. And so everybody's like, all right. So one of my cousins was like, let's do the Essence Festival. I'm like, that is so on my bucket list. I've always wanted to go to the Essence Festival. We've talked about it with other cousins, and we were supposed to do it, I think, like 2 years ago. But life happens, right? Life happens. Life gets in the way. Things happen. We don't know what tomorrow gonna bring. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, dang. So I was like, okay. And then it was like, well, what about Jamaica? I'm like, oh, yeah. So I was like, when you want to do Jamaica? So she's like, well, when school is out, because she's an educator. I said, okay, so that's June. And so she was like, I said, what date? So she told me the date. I said, that's perfect. She said, but see, no, I'm more the person. You got to literally say, okay, this is the property we're looking at. This is how much it costs for the property. This is what the flights are looking like. Right? My cousin, this one particular cousin, she has a preference on the airline she flies. Respected. Well respected. And this is when we're leaving. She needs that. And she's like, okay, you just need to tell me and let me make these payments. I'm like, let's deal with a travel agency, right? So we could go ahead and get it in. But saying that to say, we're talking, we're encouraging, right? And we know that sometimes life will get in the way. So that takes me back to when life happens and things are going on. Sometimes people just need to be reminded that they're loved. Sometimes people need to be reminded that they're respected. Sometimes people need to be reminded that they're needed, that they're appreciated, that they're gifted. And the list can go on and on and on and on and on. It definitely could go on and on and on. And it does most times. But we have to be mindful. Because as I said before, sometimes it could be hard to tell whether a person loves you or they don't. If they care, if they don't care. Some people might say, oh, it ain't too hard to tell. You'll be able to tell if somebody, okay, yeah, maybe not. Everybody is different. I get it. To each its own. To each its own. But you never know what a person is going through. I always try to tell people that. You literally do not know what a person is going through. What's going to get them going. What is something that could trigger something, right? I was talking to someone last week at work, and we were talking about triggers. We all have them, okay? We all have them. But we have to learn, right? Simple, yet not simple. I think the most simplest word, 3 words we could say in words of affirmation through a love language is an example of just saying simply, I love you. Okay? When you're in a relationship, it's nice to remind, through words of affirmation, it's nice to remind your spouse, your significant other, that you love doing this thing called life with them. Sharing your everyday with them. My husband and I, since he's been on the road, we talk every day, a couple times a day, through an app, because overseas could be quite expensive, right? But we found a way to make it work. We've been able to video chat, and we just make it work. We figure it out. But I am so grateful for my husband, as I know he feels grateful for me. We have a friendship. We have a unique bond. We are great parents to the children we have, outwardly, inwardly, You know what I mean? I feel that way. I think my husband is a great father. I'm not saying that because he's my husband. He could be an average father. I'm like, well, he could do some work. But no, he's a great father to the children outside of our marriage that were before me, as well as to the son that we share, Cody. And so he's a great person who really makes it his business to make sure that I'm happy, that our house runs smooth, that my life is at peace to the best of his ability. And I do the same for him. It's called acts of service, right? Gifts, you know what I mean? Physical touch. My husband is a physical touch person, as far as that's one of his love languages, as well as gifts of service. Acts of service and gifts. Words of affirmation, that's also quality time. We talk about that. I always tell people that, it's so important to make sure that you keep date night relevant. Because when you started dating and courting, as the older people would say, you really did appreciate them. You guys went to lunch. You went to dinner. You did spontaneous dinners. Hey, what you doing tomorrow? You want to catch a movie? And this and yeah. So that was all great when it was new. But I've heard this more than not. People, especially wives, will say this about their husbands. Yeah, well, he just don't like to do those things anymore. Or we don't do that. We ain't done that in a long time. And I might say, well, why? He just don't. Okay, so do you take the initiative? And you'll hear this, ladies. We good for this one. I'm sick of being the one that's always making the initiative. He know I like to do these things. Okay, I didn't ask you that. That wasn't my question to you. So pause, ladies. And this can go for you too, fellas, but I'm talking to my ladies right now. Pause. If there was times when y'all used to do things, think back. Were you the planner? Or were you suggesting and he just took it and ran with it because he was trying to get you? He was trying to win you over. He wanted to let you know that he wanted to be with you. He loved your company. And then it led to y'all getting married and all those great things that come along with that. Right? So if you think about that, you just want to look at it and say, oh my God, I'm looking at life. I'm enjoying life. I miss some of the things we used to do. And do I want this to end? No, we don't. But do we have time to always do these things? Not all the time. Not all the time. We don't. I have to say that because, as I said before, life gets busy. Like I know that we are busy human beings. Y'all know like I know. Every day, whether you are a parent or not a parent, you got to go to work. Most people. Right? You still got to live. Right? You got families, you got friendships you're trying to control and help build and, things like that. Not control like you're a control freak, but build up, things of that nature. We really, really have to think about those things. And then really factor, how do we want life to be for us? We have to take the initiative. It's up to us to take the initiative. Sometimes we got to be the person in the relationship that says, you know what? I'm going to do this because I want to do this. Or I'm going to do that because I want to do that. You can't always point the finger at your significant other. Well, we didn't do that because, he just don't do no more. Or she just don't. Okay, what about what you do? What about what you still do? I heard you. And I'm hearing you when you say, well, it takes two to tango. Well, I shouldn't have to always. No, you shouldn't. I agree. You shouldn't have to always. But let me be clear. If you want to do some things and it's not happening and you feeling like, oh, okay, it used to be this way, you can't get mad at him. You can't get mad at her if you ain't doing nothing. You got to make that thing work. You got to figure out through your love languages, right? Because there's 5, right? You got to figure out, what do I need to do? What should I be doing so I can be able to do this or I could be able to do that? And once you figure that out, you could look at it and say, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. But some of y'all will sit there and you will hold a grudge against your wife. You will hold a grudge against your husband. Well, she know I like this. Well, he know I like that. Okay, I give you that. They do. but you also know that you like this and you know you like that. So is it fair for them to just cut you off or just be like, well, you're inconsiderate and you didn't care and on, and then the harping and the bellowing and the complaining, and then it's like, you know what, just throw the whole relationship away. You have some marriages that have crumbled because there was a lack of communication. And then you said, well, did you ever tell them you felt that way? No. Okay, so how did they supposed to know that? Oh, they know. You just assuming. Well, I mean, ain't nothing changed. But what you don't realize, a lot of times people change. And you would think you want people to change. You don't want somebody to be the same way. That means they're not growing. They're not advancing. And that's very sad. You don't want anybody like that, do you? Some of y'all are like, I mean, you know, hey. It was like, really? Really? You don't want that for you. You don't. I don't care what you're talking about. You don't want that for you. So when you think about little words like I love you or I trust you, you know, when your spouse does something and inspires you, encourages you, let them know. Like, you know what? That really inspired me. I really liked what you did, or I really liked what you said. That means a whole lot. Right? And you could be looking at yourself and say, well,